All right, gonna start letting people filter in. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm gonna give it maybe 2 or 3 minutes to, well, maybe not quite that long, minute or two to let everyone get settled. And then we will roll into letting Abby do her presentation. I'll do a quick introduction as we go. So hang tight as people filter in, and then we'll go into some logistics, basic introductions, and then we'll get started. So thank you for coming. And if you're in already, you'll have to listen to that whole spiel in another minute and a half. All right, getting ready to go through the spiel again in case you already heard it. So we'll get started in about 1 minute. We'll do some introductions, do some logistics, and then we will get straight into the content with Abby presenting. So thank you for joining, and yeah, hang tight. We don't want to leave people behind, but if they miss a little logistic stuff, that's cool too. So maybe another 30 seconds. All right, let's dive into introductions and logistics. So first, I guess introductions. My name is Marcus. I'm the CEO, one of the founders of Harmonize. Harmonize is not going to feature terribly front and center in this because this is really more about Abby and her work. But it was just so fascinating to me that what they were doing from an AI perspective that I was like, we should definitely get this out for people to be able to listen to. So Abby, if you'd like to introduce yourself and then hand it back to me, I'll do some more logistics, and then we can get underway.
Absolutely. As Marcus said, my name is Abby Stoll. I am the Assistant Instructional Technologist at Lincoln Memorial University at the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence.
Excellent. So from a logistics perspective, David and I are going to be monitoring the Q&A and chat, and we will interrupt Abby at appropriate times as best we can with any questions. So make sure you get your questions in, whatever's most comfortable to you, chat or Q&A, entirely your call. We'll be watching both of them. We are recording this, and we will be following up with the recording as well as some resources that Abby had to share from the webinar. So hang tight if for specific guides and such, and the recording of it, that'll come out maybe a day or two from now, depending on our time and how quickly we can get to that. So yeah, so ask your questions. If you're really eager to come on voice and ask your question in voice, just put that in the chat as well, because I can promote you to that level to be able to ask your question in voice. So if that's easier for you, just let me know as well. So without further ado, I think that is the rest of my logistics. Abby, back to you to get underway.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to share my screen here and get my PowerPoint pulled up. Oh, starting at the beginning. Let's start over. Here we go. So as Marcus said, this presentation is LMU Harmonize, and we are hosted by the UPCEA, and we are focusing on using AI to help instructors implement our LMU course template. So a little bit about Lincoln Memorial University, which is where I work. We are a private nonprofit university with our main campus about 55 miles north of Knoxville, Tennessee, and Harrogate, Tennessee. In addition to our main campus, which hosts most of our residential students, we
Abby,
have...
can I interrupt for a second? You're actually on showing the presenter screen versus the actual slide screen.
Great. Thank you for letting me know that.
No problem.
That would have been unfortunate to have shared the entire time. All right, let me do this again. All right, so let's do this. And reopen. Presenter screen now?
Presenter screen.
Okay, fabulous. Thanks, everyone. You can see all my notes and what I was reading from. That's fine. So anyways, we have 11 extended sites and some out-of-state programs as well. We have over 30 academic majors, an average class size of about 14. And as of fall 2023, we had a total enrollment of about 5,800 students. About 1,600 of those were undergraduates, and about 4,200 of those were graduate and professional studies students. Then a little bit about the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence. So you can see here that we are jacks of all trades. There are 3 of us at the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence: the Chief Instructional Technologist, the Director of Online Learning, and myself, the Assistant Instructional Technologist. And at the CTLE, we foster a culture of collaboration and continuous improvement, equipping faculty with personalized support, evidence-based strategies, and custom design resources to enhance teaching effectiveness and promote student success in higher education. And then a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. I got my bachelor's. I was a liberal arts major, as you can see here, from the University of Miami in 2018, Miami, Florida, not Miami, Ohio. And I went to NYU for a year after college for archives and library science. Didn't like it, got a job in higher ed administration at Touro University, where I worked for 3 years. During that time, the pandemic happened, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, and I moved back to Fort Lauderdale at that time, and I was working fully remote for Touro. And I pursued my master's in science and learning experience design from Brandeis, which I got in 2023. And then I started at LMU in March 2023. So I've been with LMU a little bit over a year. When I came on board at LMU, we were going through some major changes. So the main change was transitioning from Blackboard as our learning management system, which the university had been with for over a decade, to Canvas, which we now live and breathe in all day, every day. And with that major learning management system transition, the executive leadership at LMU wanted to take the opportunity to really place a high emphasis on building high quality courses in Canvas, to have consistent courses across the board at LMU, and moving towards a master course model. So what this really looks like is, when you're a student at LMU, no matter what level you're at, no matter what program you're at, no matter what course you're taking, the overall layout and design of your course is the same. So you can really focus on learning the information that you're there to learn and not navigating a new course design every time you take a new course. So the way that we implemented that kind of vision from executive leadership was through building an LMU course template, which I will show you momentarily in Canvas. And we built several different documents that kind of support the use of this template, which I will also show you. And then we pretty much scrapped our previous online and hybrid faculty guidebook and totally revamped and revised it with updated resources for 2024 and with information that is pertinent to Canvas, obviously, instead of Blackboard. So I'm going to navigate out of my presentation really quick, show you our course template. So to begin here, this is our homepage. And as you can see, we have instructions. You'll see this kind of as I go through a module here that give faculty guidance on what they need to be putting in each section. And then we have kind of fill in the blank areas as well. So again, this is our homepage. Going to go into the modules area, and to pivot really quickly, we have this instructor module here. It says do not publish, and this is required for faculty. So we hope that these emojis will grab their attention. And we have our online and hybrid instructor guidance here. And so again, this is all within Canvas, all accessible for instructors. So we have our instructor guidebook, which is housed in Wakelet. I won't go through it in much detail, but just to give you an idea, so it loads here. It's about 40 pages long, so it's very comprehensive. It's not meant to be like a 15-minute read. And we have all sorts of stuff in here that is both LMU specific and that is also more generic, like creating accessible digital content, writing measurable objectives, being present in your classroom, things like that. Then we also have our template documentation. So we have a document here called critical components that really is like a do's and don'ts list. Let this load for a moment. So things like just reminders regarding the template that we really want to call out. Don't put manual dates, use Canvas date functionality, keep our course navigation menu, keep our branding, things like that. Then we have a document here that I won't pull up, but it is our justification document for using the template so that it's really clear that These are not just arbitrary restrictions that we've placed on faculty. These are empirically backed requirements, and they are meant to help students and faculty in maximizing their work or their learning. And then we also have the using the LMU course template document, which is really a step-by-step document specifically for faculty who are developing their first course in Canvas at LMU that really breaks down in a more granular way how to fill out all of this information in the template. Ideally, the guidance that we have within the template itself, which you'll see in a moment, would be explanation enough, but this is an extra level of support. So let me go back here. So we have in our template 16 pre-populated skeleton modules that we provide all faculty for all courses at LMU. So whether they're online, hybrid, or lecture, they will get this skeleton. It's only fully required for online and hybrid instructors. So you'll see here we have these kind of fill in the blank areas like we did on the home page, and then within each section, which I will go through here, we have instructions, tips, sample content, and I'll just kind of quickly go through here. So here we're looking for measurable objectives, a to-do list, an instructor overview. So this is where we really want instructor authored materials and where like accreditors would be looking for instructor presence in the course. We have a reading assignment area for textbook readings. Learning materials is ideally for like external content like graphics, websites, articles, charts, things like that. We have our assignment overview section and guidelines for a skeleton assignment. We don't require assignments for every module. They're just pre-populated there for faculty if they want to use them. Then we have our standard discussion template if you're using a classic Canvas discussion. We don't require discussions for every module. We do require a collaborative component, and the default for online and hybrid learning tends to be online discussions. So that is where this template comes into play. And then finally, our wrapping up and looking ahead section, which might look a little overwhelming with all the yellow highlighting, but I will get to that later. The wrapping up and looking ahead section is intended to really connect the dots for students. The wrapping up section is intended to summarize the content from the module and connect it to prior content learned in the course so far. And then the looking ahead section is intended to connect what students have just learned in this module to what they'll be learning next. So the idea is we're not just giving students a lot of disjointed information in all these separate modules. Everything is related, contextualizing their knowledge so that it makes sense for them in the long run. So I'm going to go back now to my presentation here. So every semester, except for fall 2023, because of the big Canvas transition, the CTLE conducts course observations using a course checklist of sorts to really take a snapshot in time, and these are not meant to be punitive at all, but really to demonstrate ongoing improvement on our end and on faculty's end in terms of building continuously improving online and hybrid courses. So because we moved into Canvas and revamped all of our guidance, we also created a brand new course checklist, which I will show in a moment. And then this semester, spring 2024, we conducted 212 course observations. So that was the three of us at the CTLE manually going through all of our online and hybrid courses according to this checklist and trying to determine where faculty had room for improvement in their course based on our criteria. So I will show you that checklist now. This load. So at the top here, we would put the course information. The comments area is for like specific feedback on different areas. And then they would get an overall rating of fully met, partially met, or not met. And again, this is not meant to be in any way punitive, just meant to give them an idea of where their course stands in terms of our best practices and hopefully help get their attention moving in the right direction for the course. So you can see down here, we have several different sections. The checklist is about 7 pages long. That overall status at the top is based on how many fully, partially, or not met they have in all of these different criteria. All of these criteria, again, are based on like empirically backed best practices, industry standards that we put together. We tried to provide references for all the different criteria. So again, faculty know we're not just randomly rating them on all of these things that we personally like. These are best practices to make optimal learning experiences for students. So I will go ahead and go back. And so let's see here. Based on our spring 2024 course observations, the majority of the observations that we did got overall ratings of partially met or not met. And that might sound really sad, but this was actually expected because we are going, excuse me, we are going through a huge LMS transition. It was a major learning experience for the 3 of us, as well as all of our faculty who had been in a different system for over 10 years. So we were expecting that there would be a lot of room for improvement. And our focus is really not on the ratings, but just on what we can do to be better for the next academic year. So the first thing that we did in trying to address this template noncompliance issue, which is really the partially met and not met, was identifying patterns that we saw across the board in all of our observations. So these were the main patterns we identified from those 212 observations. Non-measurable objectives, a lack of regular and substantive interaction by faculty, not meeting collaborative activity requirements, insufficient course content in the learning management system, accessibility noncompliance, and a lack of rubrics. And so I'm going to go forward trying to explain how we kind of tackled all of these different areas. So to begin, we tried to go through the checklist and say, like, were there specific sections of our template that were consistently troublesome for faculty? And we identified a few different sections, but perhaps the most kind of outstanding was that wrapping up and looking ahead section. We just weren't getting a lot of content there. It seemed like there was a lot of inconsistency in terms of what faculty were putting in there. So we're like, okay, that's probably an us problem, right? If nobody's doing what we want, maybe we didn't say it correctly. So we solicited feedback from faculty on their confusion. What about this was unclear? What about this don't you understand? Things like that. And based on their feedback, we tried to revise our guidance and provide much more detailed information on what we're looking for in those sections. And that was that yellow highlight section that was really long. That was us trying to be really, really detailed this time in terms of what we're looking for there. Another thing that we noticed across the board was accessibility noncompliance. And again, we know that we provide a lot of information on accessibility and universal design for learning in our online and hybrid guidebook. But the feedback we were getting from faculty is we don't know the information that you're telling us we're not doing. And so clearly, again, maybe we need to present this information in a different way because the way we're doing it isn't working. So we designed an online course in Canvas that provides a lot of engaging videos and hands-on activities to hopefully present this accessibility and inclusive design content in a way that will connect for more faculty. So that was our kind of second attempt there. Third, the reason you're all here, so chomping at the bit for this, I'm sure, is the AI prompt guide that we developed. So before I show you the AI prompt guide, the disclaimers I have is that it is still in draft form. It is a living document. I literally edited it today. I edited it yesterday. And it will probably be edited tomorrow as well. And that is because the information with AI is constantly moving. We're trying our best to keep up, and we want to make sure that we are giving our community the best quality information that we can. So far, we're sharing it on a case-by-case basis. The lucky attendees of this webinar will get to be a case where this is shared out to you afterwards, but we're not openly distributing it right now because we still have a lot of kind of kinks to work out, things we want to add, things we want to change. And as far as the primary use case of who we're sharing this with, there's kind of two. One is faculty who were maybe hired based on their expertise in their field. So think, for example, a mechanic who is an amazing mechanic and great at teaching mechanic things, but maybe has very little experience or no experience using a learning management system. And so for that reason, when we're evaluating or observing their course, there's not a lot of content in the learning management system. Another example are faculty who actually are seasoned faculty members who have been professors for a long time, but they've traditionally taught online. So again, they really don't have comfort using learning management systems. They're not comfortable transitioning their courses to fully online. We're not seeing a lot of content in the LMS. And so we're trying to kind of target these two audiences with the AI prompt guide. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So this is the generative AI prompt guide for the CTLE at LMU. We start here with a generative AI definition. We have an AI responsibility checklist that we adapted from Google. And we really emphasize, obviously, reviewing your work, understanding security and privacy, disclosing your use of AI, and that AI is the starting point, not the end all be all for the content you're putting into your courses. We have our little infographic AI pottery wheel here. So the point of this is really, again, that AI is a part of the process, not the entire process, and that humans, hence this hand, have a big role to play as well. And then these are the actual prompts that we have made to specifically relate to our LMU course template. So these titles might look familiar because they are the titles of those different sections in our template. So faculty, as they go through each page of the template and they're developing their course, they have prompts that can help them expedite the process of building out that material. So we have prompts for all of the different areas. We have tips. This tip is actually from Marcus to consider incorporating module objectives into your assignment creation prompts, because this will ensure the assignment suggestions align with the stated objectives for the module. And we created an example of that here. We also have this section down here, which I'm sure will expand over time, which is prompts to move the AI response you're receiving in a different direction. So we really want to emphasize to faculty that they're having a conversation with the AI, that if the AI gives them something that they don't like or isn't what they were looking for, they don't have to accept it as is. They can continue to converse with the AI to get the response to be closer to what they're looking for. So we have, this might seem intuitive to those of you who are really familiar and comfortable using AI, but a lot of our faculty have never used it before. They're scared to use it. And so we want to make this as clear and straightforward as possible, that they have power in this conversation. So these are, you know, make it longer, make it shorter, add information, take away information, etc. And then on our last page here, we have some content that I actually adapted from Valerie Myers, which is 6 components of a great AI prompt. And this is kind of taking an alternative approach of, if you want your output to be closer to what you wanted from the get-go and to have less of that kind of redirectional conversation, then you might want to use these tips to build a really great prompt from the get-go. So that is the prompt. Then the way that we're using this guide right now is, rather than kind of just handing it out and being like, here, good luck, what we're doing is actually using the guide to build example modules for faculty to give them an idea of how they can use this guide with their existing content to build a great course. And so the module that I'm going to show you after this slide is a module that I built out using instructor authored material, the syllabus, textbooks, additional learning materials that were in the course, and AI. I walked the faculty member through the module, explaining the process as I went. So saying, you know, this is the prompt I used, this is the content that I used in conjunction with this prompt, etc. And then always placing emphasis on the power of the subject matter expert to make the content even better than what I created. So I really want to make sure that we're not coming to faculty and being like, look what I did with your content and AI without you. That's not the point here. The point is I was able to create this using your content and using AI, but this is not as great as it could be because I'm not a subject matter expert and I don't have the ability to vet that information and make it personalized to students or to know what your students' preferences are, to know your own personal experiences, which we know really resonate with students and often make the difference for them and their learning. So the idea is these tools can help you expedite the process and help bridge the gap for you in terms of using a learning management system that you're unfamiliar with, but these are not meant to replace you at all. So to give you an idea of what that looked like, here is our sample module here for Social Welfare Policy Foundation. So this is an online course example. So you can see this looks very similar to our template that I showed you before because it is. And I'm going to briefly go through and just give you an idea of what it looks like fleshed out, what I did basically with the existing content plus AI. So we have our objectives and to-do lists. So these are measurable objectives, Bloom's taxonomy, yada, yada. And the whole to-do list here, which is filled out, detailed, accurate to what students are actually doing in the course. Then we have our instructor overview. And so those objectives and not the to-do list, but the objectives were created using the textbook objectives and AI and based on the AI prompt guide to kind of tweak them so they weren't verbatim the textbook objectives, but I had something to go off of and then AI helped me refine those. And I explained this to the faculty member as I went through. This instructor overview was a great example of some faculty feedback I received. So again, this is ideally where the faculty member really puts their voice and that personal experience. Because I'm not a subject matter expert, I didn't have that. So this was mostly AI in the textbook. So it's rather dry and it's rather long. And the faculty member was like, that's too many words for my students. And I don't think they would like that. And I was like, I appreciate that feedback. And I encourage you to modify what you're putting in here and what AI is giving you with visuals or whatever you need to make this better for your students. And it's so great that she has that insight into what her students want and need, because like I said, while I was able to generate a lot more content for her, it's not necessarily content that's going to be the best use for her students. So we want to make sure she's still empowered to personalize things to her needs. Then we have our learning materials. So this was a textbook reading that was already assigned for the course. And then the learning materials, I used the AI prompt guide to curate a list of updated 2024, preferably, websites, articles that were pertinent for this module. And I emphasize that I did not just copy and paste those articles from ChatGPT into the learning materials section. I went through them to make sure they were recent, to make sure they were relevant, and then put them in. But of course, again, a subject matter expert rather than me would have even more insight into what the best materials are. But this is a way to kind of expedite finding relevant information. Kind of where I probably went the most back and forth with AI was over this assignment that I created. The first assignment that ChatGPT generated based on a combination of information. I used the prompt from one of the prompts from our guidebook and then some of the instructor overview that I generated and was like, make an assignment based on this context. And it gave me a crazy long assignment that would have taken like months to do, which was not at all what I was looking for. So I went back to the AI using those redirection prompts that we had and was like, can you please make this way shorter? It needs to be reasonably completable within like a week. So back and forth with AI. Eventually I got something along the lines of what I was looking for, put that in here. And I still had to tweak it a little bit myself as well. And then I also had AI help me generating this rubric. And then we have a discussion prompt, again, which I used information from that instructor overview area to create a discussion prompt. Same thing, it was too long. I had AI shorten it again. And then we have our famous wrapping up and looking ahead section, which again, this is a little bit trickier for AI to get a grasp of what you're looking for. So it's either a lot of conversation with AI or a very specific prompt from the beginning. So this is what it came up with here. So we have summary information, we have recommendations on how they can continue to challenge their thinking, as well as additional resources for them to look into, which is what we were hoping to have in this section. And that is basically the end of that sample module. And I'm going to go back into the presentation here.
Can I ask a quick question around that? I'm curious what the impressions were of the instructors you've worked with, what they come in, where did they start at mentally around this whole, like, you're using what to do what, versus what they felt like towards the end. Like, can you give us an overview of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of faculty come in with a lot of fear of AI because the initial, I think, gut instinct when you hear there's a smart computer thing that can make stuff for your courses, the gut reaction, which is totally expected, is like, uh-oh, how does that affect my employment? So luckily, though, I think as I show them the content and they can see firsthand that they would do things differently, they become actually somewhat relieved and like, this is great. And this tool and Abby were able to do a lot to help me get the ball rolling. But ultimately, I still have a role here. There's a lot here I can change, I can personalize, I can tweak. I know my students better than anyone else. And I think it actually gives them confidence and some excitement, which I will actually talk a lot about a little bit more with Harmonize, because I think that's where we've seen a lot of excitement with our faculty as well.
Okay. So I think at this point, shortly we're going to roll into, I'm going to walk through, we have Harmonize as a layer of discussion tools that kind of put a nicer discussion forum in place and has some AI tools layered on top of that, which kind of takes out some of the go to ChatGPT, enter this prompt, go back and forth with it aspect of things. But before we transition into sort of that, I'm wondering what kind of questions, Abby covered a lot of material there. What kind of questions do you have specifically about the AI guide, the instructor feedback, those types of questions? Because I would rather devote time to that versus showing some of the tools that the Abby and her instructors have been using from us to be able to cover that. So you can put your questions in the chat, you can put them in the Q&A. Let me know what kind of questions you have. We can always, of course, come back to this if you come up with a question a little bit later. I just want to make sure I'm not eating into time around this work that Abby's done before we show a little bit of the AI implementation of what it looks like when it's inside your LMS. Not seeing any questions come in. Here we go. So thanks for the demonstration. There's 2 questions. What Gen AI tool do you use? And is there any AI use statement in the course?
Okay, yes. So question number 1, I would say most frequently I'm using ChatGPT 4.0, I don't know how many submissions they let you do for free, but whatever that is what I'm using on a daily basis. I tend to turn to Gemini when I don't like what ChatGPT gave me, and I feel like the redirection is not going as well as I had hoped. So I'd say I mostly fluctuate between those 2. And then as far as an AI use statement in the course, at this time, no. So that is also partially why we're treading lightly and carefully with our AI prompt guide. We are sort of waiting to some extent on executive leadership to give us like a formal policy. And as you guys might know, higher education not always the fastest. So we are waiting for that policy to be put in place, and we will hopefully put that in, but we're trying to emphasize responsibility like that checklist we had at the beginning of our prompt guide.
Excellent. Another question came in. Have you had any pushback from faculty where a faculty member was absolutely against the use of AI in the design of their course and was like, no, none of this?
No, I'm not in my experience. My colleagues may have, and they haven't shared it with me, but to my knowledge,
that totally would have made water cooler conversation.
Yeah,
if that
exactly.
happened.
That's what I thought. I think for the most part, we have had plenty of people expressing like reluctance and like concern and expressing that concern to us, but they're very open to listening to what we have to say. And we're not forcing this on anyone. It's really just like we're trying to express that this is something that will only benefit you. So that's kind of been our experience so far.
And I'd back that up. I've been sort of surprised. So we do a lot of AI tools to help instructors build content, and I've expected there to be more pushback. There's a lot of reticence to start with, but then when they see it generate something that they actually are like, to Abby's point, like, yeah, that's really close. You just saved me an hour of time, and now I'm actually smarter than this dang thing, so I'm going to tweak it. They leave feeling much more positive in my experience. I have had two folks who were like, this is, any use of AI is copyright infringement, which is a valid philosophical discussion to get into, which is why we also don't mandate the use of it. And so you should have some answers, I feel like, ready for those. Most of my answers are like, I totally get it. This is like the world-changing, complicated conversation. And we respect that. So let's just set this AI thing aside and let's not talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
All right. I have another question come in. Do you get questions from faculty on using AI itself to provide feedback to the student work, i.e. put a discussion post into ChatGPT to provide feedback? And what's your position about having the AI, quote unquote, assess the student work?
So I don't think I think every university is different in terms of the extent to which faculty have embraced AI. I think our faculty, like, we're kind of still getting them to embrace like the learning management system in general. Obviously, that's not across the board, but I wouldn't say we have enough adaptation of AI to really have like that level of question. I think that Marcus, based on the stuff you're doing with assessments and rubrics, can speak a lot to this topic.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So I've been, we've, a little bit of context. We're using AI to build activities for students, for instructors. We're using AI to build Canvas rubrics or rubrics in other LMSs for instructors. The next step we're taking is actually, can we coach the student on their work to point them at the part of the rubric that is most pertinent for improvement, i.e. like, oh, there's 4 rubric criteria from the instructor. You're doing great on 1, 2, and 3. Take a look at number 4. Full stop. And what we found in our research and digging with it is that that's where you need to full stop, because anything beyond that runs into severe ethical concerns and also just reproducibility concerns. In our experience, you should tell instructors no if they're trying to do this, unless they are going to heavily edit the feedback and review the edited feedback, because it will make mistakes. You can submit the same work to it multiple times and it will give you different feedbacks and different level of attaboy, good job versus that wasn't great each time. It is generally consistent in that it can point you in the right direction of, okay, here's a part of the rubric criteria that's weak. It's good enough for that. But once you pass beyond that, it's actually not good enough yet. And especially if you're not like a pro prompt engineer, I would tell them to stay away from that, because it's just simply like, there have been a bunch of experiments where someone put a different name on the same content and it graded it differently based on the name. So you can get guidance as long as you are willing to be that instructor in the loop, to say, okay, thanks. Oh, you're right. That pointed me in the right direction. But even that, you have to be careful with, because if the AI points you here and there was a problem here you did not see, you are now anchored and biased to look where the AI pointed you. And instructor presence is such a problem in classes that you're taking away one of the key places for instructor presence when that happens. That's my,
Exactly.
I'll step off my soapbox now and come down.
No,
But
I completely agree. I think also our hope is that by saving faculty so much time in so many other areas using AI that are more of those like repetitive tasks that have less instructor like presence or involvement per se, it gives them more time to do this kind of personalized grading and have those conversations with students. So I think that would kind of be our perspective right now. Like I said, we're kind of waiting to some degree for more explicit direction from like executive leadership on what our like official stance is on a lot of these things, but we have kind of ideas of how we feel about various different things, and we're just trying to have an open conversation as much as possible.
Question came in on chat, Abby, that I'll read for you. And I don't know if you have experience in this or not, but it's, ChatGPT is primarily words. How do you introduce building assessments in a more interactive way?
I would say I'm going to use that as an opportunity to transition to Harmonize. I would say Harmonize, which Marcus is going to go into, is an AI supplemented tool that can help you build more engaging collaborative online discussions or other types of assessment activities. And other than that, we're still kind of at the precipice of getting into all the different kinds of AI supplemented assessment activities. So again, we are learning so much with AI. I wouldn't say we're behind, but we're
Oh, you're not
rapidly
behind.
trying to catch up.
You are not behind, Abby.
Yeah, we are trying to catch up because we were in our Canvas transition for so long. So there are a million articles and webinars and things on AI supplemented assessment that we are looking forward to reading and implementing. But right now, I would say our piloting of Harmonize is one of the main ways that we are trying to incorporate AI into assessments, and then also addressing template non-compliance points that I brought up earlier in the presentation. So Harmonize can help so much with regular substantive interaction. It really promotes collaboration between faculty and students, but also student to student. There's accessibility, which is a point we've had an issue with, especially with closed captioning. Harmonize now has auto-generated closed captioning for videos, which is amazing. And then using rubrics, which is, I think, the thing, kind of going back to that question about what a faculty response been to using AI. From the faculty that I've worked with, and specifically that I've worked with teaching them how to use Harmonize for our pilot, they have expressed the most excitement over the rubric feature that Harmonize has in generating rubrics for them. I am not a faculty member, but it sounds like it is not their favorite thing to do. And it sounds like the idea that they can meet our request of having rubrics for all of their assignments, which we know helps provide standardized grading, like consistent grading for students, and also helps students hone their work as before they submit it, because they're able to see what exactly faculty are looking for. We want faculty to use rubrics as much as possible, but we know they are not fun to make personally. And we know that a lot of the ones that are just kind of like floating out there on the internet are super generic and not necessarily very helpful. And Marcus will talk more about how Harmonize can really make those rubrics quickly and very specific to the assignment that you've created. So it's really a win-win in that sense. And from there, I'm going to hand it over to you, Marcus.
That was a lovely sales pitch. I didn't know
Thanks.
you were going to go that deep. That was great. So first and foremost, Harmonize is not an AI tool. Like, we're not one of the new AI only things. Like, we've been around for 5 years, and our whole bread and butter is let's bring collaboration and engaging assignments into your LMS. So that can be, PDF annotations. Mainly it's the discussion platform. How do we let students use video and screen share and add imagery and supporting things so that they're not doing just words, so that they can't just answer the prompt with ChatGPT and just words like, hey, do a video reflection on your learning, those types of things. And more recently, we look at the pain points, and when we look in the data of like, what are instructors doing well, what do they need help with? A lot of it boils down to is like, no matter how good your tools are, using something like Abby has done to build a discussion prompt, or using our tools to build a discussion prompt or an online activity building tool, really kind of elevates things to the next level. And if you're going to build a rubric, you can build one with ChatGPT, but then you have to like copy and paste it in. And so we're just trying to ease that burden of like, just click a button, we will put it in Canvas for you type of things. And so that's kind of what I was going to cover, to show you sort of that next level of like 100% you can do what Abby's doing, and it's brilliant. It's awesome to be able to use ChatGPT directly. Our belief is that there's still a little bit of a barrier to entry there. If you have to be you have to be comfortable talking to a machine, which a lot of people are just not comfortable chatting with the machine to do. So can we put a layer on top of that to make it easier for the instructor? So I'm going to do a real quick demo on that, and then we'll take questions. I'm going to try to make this as not sales pitchy, because I know you're here more for the for Abby's work than ours. So I'm going to go ahead and show you basically what Harmonize is, which is a discussion tool. Let me actually come into one here so you can just see real quick 7 seconds of what it looks like. It's the idea that inside the LMS, we can have a multiple due date based instruction where video and content and YouTube videos and such are front and center. And then each of the student post comes in and can have media, can have video, can have imagery, so that you're not just doing words, because words are really easy to do with ChatGPT nowadays. So can we add supporting resources? Can we add, I mean, let them sketch, like I sketched a chemistry icon for a demo earlier today, took a picture and uploaded it into a harmonized discussion. Like, how do you get them out of that mindset of like words, 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 words? How are discussions not just checking the box? But specifically what Abby is piloting is for, or I keep on coughing, is that when the instructor is actually building their activity, we give them a big box that just says, hey, tell us what you want to teach. That we were talking about covalent bonds in chemistry there, and the instructor had told me that they wanted to have students reflect on the problem solving. If I can spell things close enough for ChatGPT to actually recognize them, on the problem solving side of things. Basically, we're like, you are the subject matter expert. Let's take the prompt engineering out of it. You tell us your Bloom's taxonomy level. You tell us those learning objectives that you built with Abby's script, or you had your instructors build with, like ASU has a great objective builder that I can share out where it's like, here's how to build a smart learning objective. Give that to us, put it in here, and then we're going to just keep building activities until you're like, yeah, that one's cool. Or cool enough that, like Abby was saying, like, but I'm a little smarter than that, and that's not exactly what I wanted to cover. Or maybe in this case, this one's like breaking my class into small groups, etc. And so you can always just, this instructor just sits here and goes back and forth with it and be like, no, try something different. Well, here's a different activity. Here's a different activity, etc. And if you've provided the learning objective and you've picked a Bloom's taxonomy level, we are making sure that it's lining up to what you're trying to do without you having to go back and forth. But the whole goal of this is to get the instructor comfortable enough that they're willing to add it to their instructions by clicking the add to my instructions button and then editing it to make it their own. And hopefully adding a little instructor presence to where they can be like, I'm going to do a quick, video introduction of like, hey, here's what we're going to talk about. Here's what I want you to focus on. Like, let's add some personality into these things that if ChatGPT writes a bit dry, so either add your personality into the writing or add your personality in some way so that the students actually know what it is that they're working through. And then to that next point of like, how do you get the instructor to do a rubric, can be quite difficult. So we then once again take them through that next step of like, okay, that was cool. We're going to build a rubric for you. So we're going to look at your instructions, whether you used RAI to write them or you wrote them on your own. We're going to pull out what should be the left side of your rubric. We're going to keep the instructor in the loop and give them that criteria to say, hey, take a look at these 4 criteria. This is what we think you're asking for. Is it correct? Because once again, you're smarter than the machines. Edit those. If you don't believe in this particular thing, or you wanted to elaborate on what types of bonds and molecules you were working with in chemistry, and were you citing resources and those types of things, great. When you get these the way you want them, then we will actually generate the full rubric for you. So we're still keeping the instructor in that loop, which is so key, and is what Abby is doing as well, is like, make sure they know they are the expert. They need to review things because they all hallucinate. All the AIs hallucinate and have problems, which is why you have to be super careful. But in the end, it's like, okay, give them the ability to edit it, give them the ability to look at it. It will at least give them the 95% base to be able to get them there so they can then tweak it. And then when they are finally done generating it, which sometimes takes a few seconds, then they save the rubric. They publish the topic, and now they have something that they've actually edited. Here's the activity, the video, and the rubric. And if I reload my Canvas page, it's actually a full-blown Canvas rubric now, so that they can then use it for grading. So to Abby's point of like, how do we get this stuff in quickly and get them ability to see it and make them comply with what we're looking to do? Now when they open this in SpeedGrader, they are grading with a rubric, and it was just a few steps to do. In particular, some of the RSI sides of things, like we're really looking at streamlining the grading process. And this, I think, is where the instructor time savings trade-off of like, you used AI to build XYZ, that saved an hour and a half. Go spend that hour and a half being present with your instructors. So like if you're in the grading interface or something, make sure that you are, coming in and giving feedback in the discussion, recording videos, whatever it is to be present in the class. use the time savings from AI to turn around and use that time interacting with your students to be able to give them feedback directly, so that they know you're listening, they know you're present, those types of things. And that's kind of the approach we're taking with everything, to where like we are, like I said, we're going to actually scan this, let the students scan their work against the instructor rubric if the instructor wants, so that they can get some suggested improvement areas, dive in on those and carry on. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think whenever you're doing with AI, you need to keep in mind instructor in the loop, not grading, making sure you're not replacing the instructor presence and that RSI side of things, to be able to make sure that they are actually spending their time being present and giving substantive interaction in the class, and they are not replacing that aspect of it. I asked the WCET folks about RSI in particular with AI, and they're like, there is no guidance on can you use AI to meet the federal RSI guidelines, to be able to actually give student feedback if you are using AI to do that. So don't rely on that, because there is no proof that that's going to work when it comes to accreditation timeframe. So I think everything you should do with AI should be bringing the instructor into having more time to be able to actually give that feedback. And then we're showing Abby's team, like, here's how your instructors actually acted in the class. There's the dashboard showing whether they were actually in there from an RSI perspective or not, so that you can, make sure that they are not replacing their interaction with it. But this is what it looks like inside the LMS. So if you actually have the tools integrated, it's removed some of that burden and steps as you go. So I will I'll take off my Harmonize fun stuff we build hat and turn it back over for any questions you have, for myself, for Abby. And while we're waiting on questions, I'll talk logistics as well. We are actually going to be recording this. We're going to send out the recording. Abby, which resources were you going to share with me? Was it just the prompt guide for me to put
The
in?
prompt guide, yes.
Okay, so we'll put the prompt guide up on the web page where we put the recording as well, so that we can send that out to you, so you can share it around with everyone to be able to work with it. And like I said, we have about 9 minutes left. If you have any questions, you feel free to dump them into the chat. If you have any feedback for us on the types of webinars we're doing or things you wish we had covered, we're happy to take those as well. My whole goal here is just that there's some really cool things that people are doing, like Abby. Oh yeah, someone asked about the ASU Objective Builder. I actually had pulled that up and meant to walk you through it. I'm going to put this out in the chat for everyone, because I think if you're not using AI, if your instructors aren't comfortable with it, this is kind of a cool thing. Let me restart from the top. You can start building your objectives and give this to your instructors. And darn it, this is not the one I was wanting to do. Oh yeah, it is. They have to pick a Bloom's level first, which I think, oops, shoot, I used the wrong back button. You can tell I don't use it very often. They have to pick a Bloom's level first, which I think is the only thing I kind of disagree with, but it lets them play around with the idea of like, as I come through, which verb am I actually going to pick? And then move on from there to be able to see and describe what learners want to do, and it will help them build the objective. So the part that I think is still hard is like, how do they pick the right Bloom's level? But once they get into the Bloom's level, and if you point them to maybe say start at apply or start at comprehend, and they can actually type in what they want to do here, and it will actually build the objective for them, so that you aren't having to tell them like, oh, that's not a measurable objective. Here's a verb you could have used instead, type of thing. So this is a non-AI way to do it, and I put that out in the chat to everyone. And David, if you don't mind helping me remember, we'll stick that up on the website as well as a resource for folks, because this is the non-AI way to generate some objectives. So someone gave you some feedback, interesting presentation, learned a lot. So Abby, nice job. All right, any other questions for us? Otherwise, we'll wrap up a few minutes early. Awesome. I think that is the end of it. So thank you so much. We have some upcoming webinars. David is actually presenting with Michigan. And hey, David, who else is in your webinar for the foreign language teaching?
Victor Valley.
Victor Valley. Okay, so Dave is going to be giving some instructors some voices who are doing cool things of how they teach foreign languages online, how they get the conversation practice going with sort of asynchronous video, which is super cool. I'm going to do one where I'm going to dive deeper into some of these AI tools and talking about a little more in depth around the ethics and the use of them and how you can lace them in as well. That's coming up. And then, yeah, stay tuned to the email list and the website and such for upcoming webinars, because we're always trying to elevate voices of people doing cool things. We try to be as little salesy as possible in our webinars so that you learn things when you go through. So for sure, keep attending and keep learning. I think that's the most important part of all of this, because there's a bunch of cool stuff, especially where AI is coming.
Yeah,
Going through.
thank you guys so much for coming and listening. And I would also, on a personal level, recommend following Marcus on LinkedIn. He has a ton of really cool insights that he posts on Harmonize and kind of on just the general sort of like philosophy behind like AI and things like assessment, like he touched on. So
And the end of
recommend
the
that as
world. I
well.
touched on
And
the
the
end
end
of
of
the
the world.
world.
Yeah, I saw that
Not
too.
too,
I didn't mention
yeah.
that, but
I
yes.
try not to dwell too much on the end of the world and job retraining and such,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's a fun time to be in education, and a disruptive
Yes.
time. So anyway.
Hey,
Yes.
Marcus, I was going to mention real quick, if anyone is on the webinar and they're interested in playing around with Harmonize, we do have a new tool. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that real quick.
Oh yeah, you're right. I should put my sales hat on a little more. You can go. We have a way. We do have a way that you can actually just get a URL from us, and you can go play with the recording tools and the screen sharing tools and such. David has done a great job of building out some sample content in there, so you can see what it looks like. Thank you, David, for keeping me more on our actual company mission of spreading the use of Harmonize. But we can send that to you. So if you reach out to us, David's going to be the one that's sharing the webinar recording after the fact, so you can just hit him up an email, or David, if you want to put your email into the chat, we can send you a URL. It's outside of the LMS, so you don't have to mess with LMS admins to install it. This is a place where you can just play regardless of your LMS, versus us actually implementing it inside your LMS for you as you go through. And of course, we do offer free pilots, so we don't want anyone to try to buy software they haven't played with. So that's step one, go play with it with David. Step two would be like, try it for a semester for free. That's what Abby's group is doing now.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's super fun. I spent like 20 minutes making a whole discussion about my dog. So you can have a great time just playing with it. So even if you don't plan to use it, I recommend playing with it. So
very academically sound, I would say. It's
exactly.
important that all
Super
of the students
academically
know
sound.
about
Yeah.
your dog.
About Bahamian potcake dogs. It's crucial
Wait,
to
what
their
type of dog?
education. He's a Bahamian potcake that is a street dog from the Bahamas because they feed them potcakes, which is like peas and mashed stuff.
I thought you meant weed cakes.
Yeah, nope.
No, okay,
Common
never
misconception.
mind. Yeah, right, never mind. I'll go there. All right, so thank you everybody so
Thank
much
you.
for coming. Maybe we'll wrap it up with me thinking that
Yep.
there was weed in the cakes they were feeding to the dogs, and we will.
That's why they're so laid back. But
Awesome.
all
All
right,
right, thanks
have a good
everybody.
one.
Yeah, have
Bye.
a good week.